Warning: this episode contains conversations about suicide. If you or a loved one are dealing with suicidal thoughts or ideation, please seek help immediately and/or call 988.
Oh, you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Mosaic Life. We are so glad that you're here with us. I just totally stumbled over my words.
I love it.
First time to intro and screwed it up. So that's great.
To be fair, I just threw it on you.
Yeah.
So he had zero preparation.
Literally looked at me like this. That's what you do to your friend when it's like, welcome.
The floor is yours.
Good
Floor
luck,
is mine.
friend.
The floor is yours. I wanted to see how you would introduce it.
All professional like.
It's too professional.
Wait,
What's
up, guys?
This is Mosaic Life, the podcast where we don't look for answers and we kind of just find the beauty in the hardships.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry. When you said that, every time you're like, hey, welcome back to I think automatically of whose line
is it anyways?
But anyway.
I think it was episode 2 where I literally said where everything's made up and the points don't matter.
Yeah. Well,
that was fun.
Today on the show,
Yes.
We're very excited because we have none other than Matthew Johnson with us.
You want to share your social security number with us?
Yes, please. 13. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, he's really
I
starting.
appreciate the bit, the commitment to the bit. That's what I was looking for.
Commitment to
I
the
couldn't
bit.
think of commitment.
All right. Well, you're the one with the plan. I mean, come over. Sam gets on to me every episode.
I just wanted to see if you would keep going with it. I wanted to see if you had anything in your heart.
No, because
that
I
you wanted to talk
automatically
about.
start going right into ABC. Okay,
I know.
what are we
Why
gonna
is
do?
that?
I don't know. It's like, I don't know.
It's like if there's no plan, you can't function.
Well, I already have a plan. My
that's
plan
the
is
plan.
that I already have a plan. So
But you didn't have a plan for this.
I have a plan.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, my plan is I just automatically just start spitting out like questions. All right, now let's go straight to the deep stuff. Why is God the way He is? Okay, well, let's spend 10 days on
right
that.
into the deep end.
Yeah, right into the deep end.
There's no waiting in the water. No going down the steps.
Oh, that's an interesting first question. Okay.
Is it?
Without hesitation, I want you to say shallow end, wade into the water, or deep end when in the scenario. Freezing outside, were you that kid that just ran, automatically jumped in the deep end to get it over with, or one that jumped in the shallow, kind of wading into the water? 3, 2, 1, shallow.
Deep end.
Gee, you missed the whole thing you're supposed to say.
Are we supposed to say that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Right.
why I
I
counted
thought
down
we were
3,
going
2,
one in
1.
order.
No.
That was that's mindset where we were like one at
You were
a
a
time.
deep ender?
Yeah, deep ender.
Just jump right in?
Yeah. Because I tried the waiting thing, and
Yeah.
that was like...
More torture?
Just torturous. It was like, why am I doing this to myself?
Yeah?
As a ginger, I avoided outside altogether.
That wasn't even one of the choices.
No way.
It was-
No way.
I didn't get in
Zero.
the pool at all during the wintertime. I stayed inside like I was supposed to.
Water. I don't know how to swim. Wow.
Would you
man.
feel bad if that was my answer? I never swam.
I really would. Then we would have
You
spent
guys,
the entire.
you guys know how to swim?
We would have spent the entire podcast learning how to swim. Okay, so you put one hand on the other.
Yeah, we would take this whole system outside.
Yeah. All right, we're going remote now.
Yeah,
Now
and
we're
we'll
out
tie
here.
in the spiritual with it and be like, the Lord really wants you to step out on water
Oh.
today.
Then first on Mosaic, walking on water. That'd be amazing.
It'd be incredible.
Wow.
I'm really excited about this because I have known Matt probably since Dad. Did we meet when we were like when I was 3? I was young.
No, it was
You
old-
met
it was
your
older than
dad
that.
Spoiler
when you were
alert.
born.
My dad's in the room, so I was 8 years old when I met Matt. 8 years old. So from
knew it was
8 years
a little
old
older.
on, we have known each other. We have been, I would say, brothers
Come on.
in that. And like, in fact, one of our conversations that we had, you had the perspective of we had the funship of brotherhood without like hating each other.
Yeah.
And that
Without
was-
the living day in and day out together, like
Yeah, like
being actual blood brothers, where you like get mad at each other about stuff and all
Yeah.
that. We just got to enjoy like the fun part of the brotherhood, and it was great.
it was fantastic. And me and Daniel hate each other. And so
Absolutely.
we have that hatred brotherhood. No.
So we have
No
it totally
fun.
covered here on the
Completely
this
covered on
podcast
all
right now.
aspects of the brotherhood. No, so I'm very excited to have you on. I'm very excited for this whole thing to be happening right now. And I would love for you to give the Mosers a little bit about.
You're doing it.
I don't
It
know if
caught
we're
on.
actually calling them the Mosers.
I like Mosers.
I like shards.
Shards are little shards.
It's terrible. Context to you and who you are.
Boom. All right. My name's Matt Johnson. I grew up in Nebraska. I'm the youngest of 3 children, so I'm the only boy. So I grew up with sisters beating me up and doing things to me that no little boy should deal with.
Yeah.
Getting dressed up like dolls and all kinds of things like that.
Explains a
Yeah,
whole
see?
lot.
Man. No, really, we had a good childhood. Grew up in the church. But there's a lot of things growing up in church that you run away from just because it's stuff that you feel like is forced on you. But in reality, if you could look back, I mean, it was just obviously your parents wanting the best for you.
Right.
But that's not how you see it as a kid. And things forced on you. So
Yep.
grew up in the church, had a great childhood. My parents are still together, that kind of stuff. Had a great family, but still struggled with a lot of things growing up. My biggest thing was when I was probably, 8 years old. I got drug into pornography and stuff like that from a neighborhood kid. And that's been my battle for life, just struggling with that. And when you're that young and you get hooked into something like that, it's so hard to feel good about yourself, like to feel like you're a normal kid because you always feel dirty and like something's wrong with you. And when you're a kid, you think you're the only one other than like your friends you're doing it with. Like, it's just at church, you're at church and you're like, well, these neighborhood kids don't go to church with me. I'm like the worst person here.
Yeah.
And so I grew up with that mentality that I was like this dirty kid and I didn't deserve to be there. So I always kind of ran away from it and pushed myself away from it. And obviously I had tons of words that God had a calling on my life and all that stuff. But as a kid, you run from that stuff. I mean, especially when you're in that position where you feel like you're no good, you know? And so as time went on, growing up, just had a normal childhood until I was about 15. When I was 15, I got shot in the eye with a paintball gun, ruined my vision in my right eye. And that just sent me on a spiral where I was in my parents' basement, stuck in the bed. Well, first of all, for 2 days, I was blind, completely blind. So that was terrifying because I thought I was going to be blind. And then finally, my vision in my left eye started coming back after a couple days. But then I had to spend 3 months in my parents' basement in the dark. They couldn't turn any lights on. I couldn't watch TV. And I was in a chair at a 45-degree angle. And, man, talk about a time of depression. Man, it just hit me hard. And at 15, I mean, I didn't get to see any of my friends that summer. Nobody could come spend time with me because we couldn't watch a show. They'd just have to sit there. No 15-year-old kid's just going to come sit in your basement, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And so I was alone a lot and couldn't even go to go to the bathroom. My parents had to help me get to the bathroom. I couldn't take showers. I had to take sponge baths in the chair. It was terrible. But that sent me into a really dark place of depression because then when I was going back into school, like once they released me to be able to be up out of the chair and go into school that year, this all happened over the summer too. We were like a week into summer break and this happened. So I spent my whole summer break where I was supposed to be playing and having fun in this chair. And so at the end of that, when we were going back into school, I found out that I wasn't going to be able to play sports and stuff anymore. And I was a kid around all my friends, like that's what we did. It was sports, you know?
Right.
And I hadn't got into hunting as much then. I hunted and stuff, but not like I do now. And so sports was the thing, and that's what everybody else did, so that's what I did. And so I had lost all that. And so I fell into this deep depression, and I like got to the point where I thought, man, that my life is over. There's no point. Like I can't do the stuff I want to do. And so the enemy really got me into my head thinking like I should just end it. Like it's not worth being around, you know?
Yeah.
And so I decided I was going to kill myself and got my shotgun out and was about to pull the trigger. And my parents had just left. They were going to go to the grocery store and I was going to do it while they were gone.
Yeah.
And my mom was going out to the vehicle and they were about to back out. And the Holy Spirit said, no, go back in and get Matt because something bad's going to happen. And so she ran back in and frantically said, Matt, where are you? You're supposed to come with us. And so I was about to shoot myself. And so I hurried up and put everything away, put the gun away, and went out. And I was in tears a little bit. And my mom could tell that like I was struggling with something.
Yeah.
She just didn't know what. And so I went to the store with them, and that saved my life. I mean, literally the Holy Spirit speaking to my mom saved my life.
Wow.
And it was I wouldn't say a turning point necessarily spiritually or anything, because at that time I didn't see that play out. Like, this is all hindsight.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so at that time it was just, oh man, I got caught.
Yeah.
And then things
Yeah.
started running through my head once we got home. Like, man, my mom would have come back in and found me dead on my bed, or like, that's selfish. I can't do that.
Yeah.
And it's literally from that point on, I never had like another drive to commit suicide or anything.
Wow.
But I didn't really dive into the Lord or anything at that time. I just kept on living, it was just every day, just trying to do my best. And going through school, I couldn't, I tried to play sports again, couldn't. I got hit a few times in football and would black out and I couldn't play, so I had to quit. And then my coach that I told I had to quit called me a quitter, not understanding the situation. So that weighed on me. Like, it's like enemy piled thing after thing on me.
Yeah.
And then you go into, like, after I graduated, I wanted to go into the military. Well, they wouldn't take me because my eye was messed up. Wow. So that was another thing that I like had my heart set on I wanted to do and couldn't. So it was just another setback for me. And so I just got a job, regular job. I can't even remember where I worked at the time right after school. Right after high school, I went to Overhead Door and worked at Overhead Door for a while. And fast forward, I just had a few other jobs in that time. And when I was 26, I'm sorry, I'm giving you my whole life story.
No, this is good.
This is good.
So when I was 26, we had a friend approach me, and his daughter had gone to Gateways Beyond Missions Training School in Cyprus. It was a discipleship training school there, and shout out to you guys. And amazing group of people, and they were taking in apps for people to come to their school in Cyprus for 6 months. And shout out to Mark Hughes. He brought me an application. He said, I really feel like you're supposed to go to this. And I was like, I'll think about it, but I don't want to go. Like, I have a job. At that time, I was working at Hornaday, making good money and good bonuses and stuff. They're a great company. And I was like, I'm just going to stay here. I'm not going to go do that. And about 3 days later, I just really felt like, at that time, I just had an inkling, but I know it was the Holy Spirit talking to me. And I was like, I feel like maybe I should go, even though it would like disrupt everything I'm doing here.
Right.
And so I went back to him and asked him for the application. And turns out that whole time, that 3 days, he had been fasting and praying for me, knowing that like I'm supposed to go. He committed that time to me. I mean, that's just so amazing to me. And so thank you, Mark. That was amazing. Changed my life. But so get to Cyprus and had to sell tons of this is what's cool about me going to Cyprus. My story is to get the tuition to go.
Yeah.
I didn't have enough money saved up.
Yeah.
I just sell tons of stuff. So I just sell almost all my guns. I only kept a couple of my guns that were like the first ones I bought that I didn't want to get rid of.
Yeah.
So I sold all my guns, sold my motorcycle, sold a bunch of other possessions just to get the tuition to go. And then plus the little savings I had. So it's literally like I had to give up everything, not everything, but a lot of the things, my material possessions to go do this and to follow what God had for me, which was like, obviously at the time, that's not how I was seeing it. I was just like, man, I just need to get this money. But now I look back on it, I'm like, man, he was just literally seeing what I would get rid of to give up to get my relationship with him right,
Right.
And so we get over there, and when we're over there, like first couple days in, I was like, yeah, I feel nothing. My leader's like, what's going on? I was like, I don't know why I'm here. I was like, I don't feel God. I'm not hearing anything. Like, I feel like this is a waste of your time and mine. And he was like, give it a few days, just fast and pray and come back in like 2-3 days and we'll talk again and see where you're at. And he goes, if you still feel like you're really not like hearing the Lord and like this isn't for you and you made a mistake, we can you'll get your ticket and you go back home, you get your return ticket. I was like, okay. And so like the third day, we're going into worship that morning, and we worshiped every morning at the school just to start your day and get everything going. They just did corporate worship, which was amazing. And he had kind of approached me before we started worship and was like, hey, let's talk after worship and we'll see where you're at. And at that moment, I was like, I'm going home. I can already tell you where we're at. But I didn't say that to him. I just was going to wait till we were going to talk after worship. And God met me in that moment in worship. And I was worshiping, and I was like, probably second song into worship, I was like, Lord, I don't feel you. I don't hear you. I was like, if you don't show yourself to me, I'm done. Like, I'm walking away forever. And literally out of nowhere, I just, all of a sudden, I feel like somebody pours hot oil over me. Like, this runs down my body. And I immediately knew it was the love of God. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, I was just radically changed. And I heard the Lord say, once that all, like, I literally sat there worshiping and felt this running down to my body. And once it reached my toes, I felt like the Lord said, even if you were the only one, I still would have given my son for you.
Good.
And at that moment, I was like, I'm yours, dude.
Yeah.
And obviously, since then, I'm not perfect, but I mean, that was my turning point in my life I'm devoting my life to God.
Yeah.
But so to preface that, like in my 20s, early to mid 20s, a lot of my friends had started getting married, and I had always wanted to get married and be a dad and have all those things. And it wasn't happening. It kept like, I wasn't finding the right person. I dated a few people and it didn't work out, and it just wasn't the right thing. And I had people in my life tell me, that I don't think this is the right person for you. You need to move on, kind of thing. And I was like, Lord, like, am I destined to be alone? And I'm 26 years old. I feel like I'm never going to get married. And in that time of surrendering in Cyprus is when I met my wife there at the school.
Yeah.
And after we got back, we ended up getting married. And it's like I had to completely surrender to God and what he had for my life before he would bring in my mate. And it was like he had to know that I was 100% surrendered. And it was so cool to me that the way he orchestrated the whole thing. And me and my wife have been married 10, almost 11 years. We got 4 kids.
That's awesome.
And been doing good, cruising, just loving Jesus. We just moved to Texas a year and a half ago.
Oh, yeah.
From Nebraska. Come on, shout
Best
out.
place on earth.
And it was definitely a move from God. My wife had been fighting me for years, wanting to move back and be close to her family, because we'd been in Nebraska with my family. And I was like, babe, like, I have my business here. I have all this stuff. There's no way I can move. And Lord, just when we were here visiting June 2022, he was like, everywhere we went while we were hanging out with her family, he was like, this is where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be in Texas. Like, this is where your family's going to prosper. And I was fighting it for so long. I think he was saying it before. I was just trying not to listen. Yeah. And at this moment, it was like, he was like, no, I'm catching you now.
Yeah.
And so I just had such a strong feeling. And I was like, Lord, I know this is you. I'll talk to my wife on the way home and we'll figure it out. And within 4 months, everything was put together and we moved and we found the right property, sold our house, everything in about 4 months. It was crazy. So there you go, folks.
Man, that is a
Oh my gosh.
fire hydrant of
my life in a
your
nutshell.
life, and I love
of
it.
a
I
testimony.
love it though. Do you have anything that you wanted to like
Oh,
put a magnifying glass on?
So when we invited you to be on the show, I was hoping you would go as deep as you did and like come out, because I know your testimony, where you've come from, and like even the dark time, and like you were just thinking about taking your life and all this. And I just want to say, like, I think it owes it to our Mosers to stop and listen and what Holy Spirit's saying in this, because I want to get back into how God's blessed you and all the move here and all the things that you heard from God and stuff. But I think we need to back up just a little bit.
Come on.
And focus on, like, you're at one of the darkest times in your life. God allowed that thing to happen. It was an accident, and what it is. It happened, and you walked through that, and then it entered into one of the darkest times in your life. And then God, out of that darkest time in your life, brought the most beautiful stuff that literally your inheritance is downstairs right now. You've got kids running around, your wife's here, and everything happened from that one horrible accident that led into the darkest time where you had a choice that you had to make. And I don't know. I really don't have a question or anything. I'm just like pinpointing and saying that, like, there's so many little things inside of my life, your life, and Matt's life. Like, what if your mom had not have come back? Mm-hmm. What if this? And we deal with 1,000 what ifs, and God intricately like sewed all the stuff into your story to where now it's all, you can't say it's not because of God's
you can't
glory.
say it's not God. I mean, there's so much evidence in my life that. And even now, looking back, like, I've had God speak to me about like the accident and the reason some of the things happened. Because I've still in my back of my mind sometimes like, Lord, why did this happen? Like, why did I get shot in the eye? Why did all this stuff happen? And I actually had an epiphany. I was talking to Daniel, I don't know, it was a few weeks ago. And the Lord was showing me that like my dream was to go to the military, and I really wanted to be a Marine, like scout sniper. That was like what I wanted to do. Yeah. And so I was getting fit and getting in shape and wanting to go do that. And with the eye thing, I couldn't go. And I was praying like the other day, and all of a sudden, I wasn't even praying about that, is what's crazy. And all of a sudden, God showed me, he was like, just showed me this blip, and he was like, if you would have gone, you wouldn't have made it through war.
Yeah.
And he was like, I have a specific call and purpose on your life that I needed you here for.
Yeah.
And that wasn't to take away from all the people that have gone to war and died.
Yeah.
Because God had them in that place for a reason.
Yeah.
And shout out to all of our military, but it was like, that's not where he needed and wanted me. Like he has a time and a place for me, and that I'm supposed to flourish. And I believe that's now. I believe that's why he moved us. The next move of God that's coming, I think he has something for me in it.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. And not that I'm a big deal, but he just showed me that there were so many little things in my life that, like, dude, I'm telling you, when I was growing up, it was like the enemy was out to get me. Like me and Daniel joke, I got like 10 guardian angels got to rotate in and out because there's so many
tag out.
Yeah, because I've had so many crazy accidents and things happen that have changed my life and like altered what I can do and what I can't do.
Yeah.
And I really believe those are all little moments that God either used that to keep me from something else. And like one time, this is a great story. So when I was 16, I was feeling pretty tough. I was a pretty big kid.
Yeah.
I had growth spurts early. And so I was going to go out and go to a party with some of my friends. And I didn't drink growing up, but I always drove the guys home that were getting hammered.
Yeah.
And so I was going to go to this party, and my mom had a dream that a kid at the party that I was going to go to got beat up and dropped off at their driveway, like partially dead. Like they didn't think he was going to make it because he got beat up so bad. And so I was going to go to this party, and my mom had a dream that was me.
Wow.
And so she tried to stop me at the door, and I go, "You're not big enough to tell me what to do." And she punched me. So my mom punched me. And she was like, "That's the only way." She was like, "I didn't know how I was going to stop you. Your dad was at home."
Yeah.
And that stopped me. Like when she hit me, I was like, I can't believe that just happened. And I literally just said, okay. And I turned back around and went up to my room. That was it. There was no argument. There was no fight. I was just like, all right, well, I'm not going to go then.
You feel that strongly about it.
And no
so you
kid,
give advice to like all the moms out there?
Yeah.
Like so if you're dealing with a rebellious 16-year-old boy,
just knock him one.
you've heard it from Matt to change their heart.
But the crazy part of that is that night at that party, a kid did get beat up and dropped off at his parents' house on the driveway.
Wow.
And it ended up not being me.
Wow.
I mean, there's so many things. I could tell you 1,000 stories. I mean,
I could tell you
crazy.
1,000 things. He's only been here a year and a half. And he's like falling off roofs.
Yeah.
The wasp incident. If you have a wasp problem, invite Matt to your house. He just attracts them.
I can handle it.
It's like a human pincushion for wasp needles.
That's how he collects them.
Yeah, he does.
But yeah, it's just the God's goodness in my life was like overwhelming.
That was the only thing I wanted to highlight is that if you're listening to this podcast and you feel like it's hopeless and you're in that dark place like what Matt was talking about, I think we owe it to y'all to just take like 5 seconds and be like, keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
Just pray and ask Holy Spirit, who is there with you right now. It's not hopeless. The situation you're in right now is not hopeless. And he's a walking testimony right now.
Yeah.
He's getting stung with a lot of wasps, but listen, you may get stung with wasps in your life, but no, the faithfulness of God always comes through.
Yeah. And I think sometimes some people have to walk through, I don't think everybody does, but I think there's some people that have to walk through that super dark time to see how much sweeter the light is.
Yeah.
Like to really know, man, I can't do any of this without God.
Yeah.
Some people get through life without being in those dark places, but there's some of us that are too stubborn, and you have to walk through that to realize I literally can't do this without you, God. Like you have to be there. And that's another thing that he showed me now since the hindsight is that picture of the footsteps going down the beach, and all of a sudden it's one set of footsteps, and the people are like, well, God, why'd you leave me? And he's like, no, I've been carrying you. Yeah. Like he showed me that so many times and things. I'm like, God, where were you at? And he's like, I literally had you the whole time. You just weren't paying attention.
Yeah. Sam loves that picture. In fact, he gives me a hard time every time I say something about it. Why do you love that picture so much, Sam?
I do not like that picture at all.
Tell me why you don't like that picture.
Because I need the second steps. I need the second set of footsteps. just for me. No, dude, like going through your story, one of the things that like just leaped off the page for me, and I can give a little bit more context to this because it's one of the things I personally love about you. You have beautiful prophetic insight.
Yeah.
And you move beautifully in the prophetic. And it's interesting to me that at the very start of your story, the enemy tried to warp your vision.
Yeah.
He started with what you were looking at.
Wow.
And tried to give you perversion in that.
Yeah.
And get you addicted to that. And then he physically went after your sight.
Wow.
Yeah.
And brought you into literal darkness where you had to sit alone and isolated.
Yeah.
And dude, you have this seer's anointing. And I just, of course he would attack your vision. Like it made perfect sense to me as soon as you started. And I was like, the way that the enemy is just focusing on your vision and trying to take that out so that you couldn't even see a future for yourself.
Yeah. Well, and he tried to take me out before I even started. This is another crazy story.
Go for it.
So when my mom was pregnant with me, the doctors were telling her that I was basically a dead fetus and to abort me. And she said, no, God told me that I was going to have a son and he was going to be okay. Well, what happened was the umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck and it was squeezing on my neck. And so they couldn't get heartbeats and pulses. So they thought they were literally, the doctor several times tried to get my mom to abort me, saying it was damaging for her to have me. Wow. And she said, no, God told me that I was going to have a son and he was going to be okay. So from the very beginning, he tried to take me out. Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, I think that there is, ironically, perspective here. That when you're struggling with not being able to see an answer, or you're not able to see a pathway out of your circumstances of wherever you are today, your story's not over.
Yeah.
Like you can make it one more day. You can make it to the end of this day. And push through it and see a turning of a page. Like there are so many seasons that you walked through. There were so many seasons that you thought were failures for you or downfalls for you, that God literally used that to mold who you are.
Yeah.
And then to give you this amazing spiritual gifting in the exact thing that the enemy was attacking you with. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, that's such a beautiful narrative that I see over your life. And as you walk forward into your legacy and what you impart to just literally, dude, everyone around you.
Yeah.
Like I have seen you step in front of strangers and give the most accurate words. And it's just like the Lord speaks beautifully to you and you allow him to speak through you. And I love that so much. And your heart in it is just like this pure joy to be around.
Yeah.
And like you are so life-giving. You have spoken into my life in very hard times, even recently, that I needed the words that came out of your mouth.
I appreciate that.
And I'm so like happy to have you on this episode today. And so like a part of this podcast is we try to take something that we feel like shattered us, and we just simply ask questions about it and try to find perspective and take a broken piece of glass and rotate it until we see the beauty in it. And I'm trying to figure out what we want to magnifying for this episode, because there's so much. I mean, you gave us so much in just your story alone. And I think that the Holy Spirit really wants to speak vision into those who can't see anything.
Yeah.
And they can't see, and they feel like they're in a dark place. And you just said where it's like that dark, or no, it was you. The darkness that you're more appreciative of the light.
Yeah. Because it makes the light so much sweeter.
And I think we're so quick to dismiss pain.
Yeah.
And like
for sure.
we get through our hard seasons and we say like, or we see the beauty after the hard season, and we're quick to forget it, and we're quick to just be like, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing now, and this is where I am now.
Yeah.
And it's holding the tension of the pain that you went through and the hard season that you went through and the beauty, and not dismissing the pain, not dismissing the season of hurt that you went through. And because I think that a lot of us, when we give our testimonies, we're like, yeah, I did this, but God, like we quickly move on to the next thing.
Yeah, the good stuff.
The good stuff.
We don't talk about the hard stuff. And this is like something that when I walked through that period of depression and like wanting to commit suicide, before that, I always thought and was taught growing up, like suicide's so selfish. Like you can't do that. But I feel like God walked me through that so I'd have empathy for the people that struggle with that on a bigger, wider basis, like daily. And it's like, people are like, well, how could you ever want to commit suicide? If you haven't been there, you don't know.
Yeah.
Because it's a dark place. And it's literally all demonic. It's Satan trying to take people out that have incredible callings on their life.
Yeah.
And some people he wins out. And it's the saddest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And like we had a guy that works for us, a really good friend, Aaron, that he went through the military and lost a bunch of friends. And he's had to watch a lot of them commit suicide now that they've been home. And I can't even imagine what he goes through on a daily basis. Those guys that they just can't handle regular life anymore. And there's so many people daily that do that God has such a calling on their life, but Satan won out. And it just makes me sick. And I feel like we don't fight enough for that. People think of suicide and they kind of shy away from it and don't want to talk about it and don't want to be around it. And if you know somebody that tried to commit suicide, people kind of shun them. And man, that's the absolute wrong thing to do. We got to be embracing people that have walked through that or are walking through that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to create a space where it's okay to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's okay to talk about uncomfortable things. It's okay to sit here in it, even though, like you said, like we shy away from it or we quickly move on to the next thing. And it's like you subconsciously are telling someone like, oh, we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
And there is such power to speaking it.
Yeah.
That you're literally taking that gift away from them and saying like, you can actually overcome by vocalizing this.
Yeah.
You can overcome by saying, hey, I'm kind of wanting to give up today.
Yeah.
And like to have the ability and the space in which you can have those conversations is so important. And that's what I want to create with this show. That's what we want to create like long-term for Mosaic Life. And it's just, this is a space that you can be uncomfortable in.
Yeah.
And we encourage that. We don't want to move past it too quickly at all. And so I know there's the suicide hotline that you can call, and they will talk to you no matter who you are forever, however long you need.
Yeah.
And I don't know the number off the top of my head, but we can put it on the screen here for you guys. If you are struggling today and you need someone to talk to right this second, please call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please call. And if you know someone who is struggling, I think it was during the Super Bowl, there was a Super Bowl commercial, and it was about suicide awareness. And it was like these two friends at a sporting event, and the other one was just like not present. You could tell like he was depressed, and the other guy's like trying to get him like into the game and everything like that. And like really like hollering and cheering for his team and stuff like that. And then like the next scene, it's a different game, and the guy that was dealing with the depression walks in, but he puts his scarf around the chair next to him. And it said like, sometimes the signals are harder to see than you think.
Yeah.
And it was the guy that was cheering and who was just trying to have a good time, who had given up. And it's like, if the people in your life who you are feeling have it all together, it's the sadness of what happened with Robin Williams.
Yeah.
The people who bring you joy in life, that brings laughter, sometimes they're the ones that are struggling.
Yeah.
And you need to check in with your friends. You need to check in with your buddies and your family members. And even if they seem okay, just have a genuine conversation. I can't tell you how many times I've had people just say like, hey, how's your heart? And genuinely want to know and give you the space to say, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Give you the space to say, I'm not okay right now.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. And I'm trying to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't see it.
And too often do we get asked questions like that, and it's just the passing by, hey, how you doing? And oh, yeah, doing great. Mm-hmm. Well, we need to start having more serious conversations, because if you're not doing great, people need to be okay with saying, hey, man, I know you wanted to hear the good answer and the easy answer, but I'm struggling. Like, I need help. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. And we need to start creating a culture of it's okay to not be okay. Yeah. Too much lately, it's like if you're struggling, you're put on the back burner. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're losing so many people. Mm.
Yeah, to make it personal, I feel like for me, I don't want to burden people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I've heard that.
And it's like, I feel like if I tell them I'm not okay, then I'm adding to your plate, and I don't want to add to your plate.
Wow.
And so I lie to myself and say it's a burden I have to carry, that no one wants to hear this. Mm. And that's what I struggle with personally. And so having that, just that little bit further, when someone says like, oh, I'm doing well. Like, no, for real. How are you doing?
No, yeah, like, are you actually doing it? Yeah.
Like, I think that's
it's okay to pry a little more.
That extra step is just like, no.
Really?
I'm not trying to leave and go talk to other people right now.
Yeah.
That it's the intentionality of, I'm actually wanting to know, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And I can't think of the last time I ever did that, honestly. And so it's a beautiful new challenge.
Yeah, for real.
To say like, no, I'm going to be intentional about asking this question now, and not just the human script.
And instead of asking 10 people on a morning, how you doing, go to like 2 people that the Lord's highlighted to you and say, how are you doing? And how are you actually doing?
Yeah.
Like, I really want to know your heart.
Yeah.
Man, how many lives could we change if we did that on a daily basis?
It's really good.
For real. That's eye-opening, honestly. To think of how many people's lives you could impact and have impact your life.
Yeah.
Like, that it is a two-sided street when you get to know someone. It's interesting. So I'm in a leadership coaching. And this week, as a group, we went out to a ranch, and they call it Horsey Day. We literally did therapy with horses. It was awesome. But like, one of the first things am I like laying on a couch like next to a horse in your head like right now?
I just imagine this tiny pony. Sam on this tiny pony.
Well, that's all I tell you. They were rocking horses. Yeah. He's about to get to that here.
Yeah. They weren't real.
They weren't real.
That was the therapy. It's just a soothing rocking back and forth.
All right, today during coaching, rock faster.
Oh, man.
But one of the first things they did is they took us out to the field where the horses are, and they just had us observe. Before we ever stepped foot in the field, we took like 15 minutes of just sitting and watching. And if you slow life down, and they were real adamant about this, like, horses, they are so aware of the insides of you.
Yeah.
And if you're panicked, if you're worried,
they sense it.
Yeah. If you're not present and you're thinking about other things, they sense that. And if you're not there, then they don't want to be around you.
Yeah.
And so we literally sat there, we observed these horses, and then we did an exercise where they're like, okay, you have to leave everything. Everything that's going on in your life, you have to leave it right now. And you have to be aware of your feet in the grass. You have to be aware of the air around you. And you have to be as observant as they are. Otherwise, you cannot approach them.
Interesting.
And so we did these breathing exercises to get there. And just, there's such power in being present.
Yeah.
That I think we take for granted a lot. And I know in my life, I've walked through things and I'm just like, my mind can't leave the past. That's usually what I have an issue with. is I just get stuck on events that have happened, or like things that I've
How
said.
could I have changed this? How could I?
Yeah. And I play that reel over and over and over again. And that's where I have a real struggle. And so to leave that and become present was extremely powerful for me. And then to be able to approach a horse, and we didn't ride at all. Like we never once got on horses. And so in getting acquainted with them, I knew if I reached out and I touched the horse and they reacted a way where they were like, nope, I don't know you enough yet, I just simply stood by them and got comfortable with them being near me. And I think the Lord does this so perfectly in our lives, because I know that there's things like shame, and I know that there's things like perspective and pressure that we put on ourselves that makes God feel distant from you, when in reality he's standing right there. We're just not comfortable enough yet to let him touch us in our lives. And he's so faithful, though, to be near us to the extent that we'll let him.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just a beautiful picture of how loving a God he actually is.
Yeah.
And I think that culture and other people in our lives have told us that he's a cruel God and like he's mean, he's out to get you. And it's just not true. It's not the nature of God. In one of the episodes earlier on in this season, we talked about God literally ran to sin, the first sin that ever happened in the universe. Before Jesus even died, God's character was to get closer to them in their sin. And that is the honest reflection of how God is. And he will stay at arm's length until you put your arms down. And I just want to invite us to be brave enough to put the arms down. It takes bravery to let someone into your life.
Yeah, for sure.
It takes bravery to actually say, like, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
That's a brave step. You're not weak in admitting it. And I think that's another side of culture that men especially, I feel like we can't be not okay. That is the cultural underline, I feel like, is spoken over men. And we have to be strong and you have to be brave. But being emotional, having tears in your eyes is still strength.
Yeah.
That's cutting off your emotions is not strength. Being dead emotionally isn't courage.
Yeah.
Being able to say, man, I'm scared out of my mind and I'm still taking these steps forward.
Yeah.
That's the true strength. That's the true courage. And having tears in your eyes through a hard season of your life is still a picture of strength. Holding a family member who's going through a hard season and crying with them is still a picture of strength.
Yeah.
You're not weak because of your tears.
Yeah. And I got to speak into that. So anytime almost every time actually, I give a prophetic word, I can't give it without like bawling my eyes out.
Yeah.
And I really feel like that's from the Lord, because when it's his touch, I know when I start to like cry, I know it's him. Like I know it's him putting that on my heart. But I also think it's to show other people, other men, I'm a pretty big dude. I'm pretty rugged, like the outdoors, like to camp, hunt, fish. Like I'm a tough dude, but I also can be gentle in front of the Lord, and it's okay to cry and it's okay to have emotion. And I think too many times when people outside the church, how do I want to say that?
You could say it. We can go there.
I'm just trying to figure out how I want to approach it. Like, too many men think that if they cry, and they've been told this and taught this from a childhood, from dads, whatever, you can't cry. You're a sissy.
Mm-hmm.
And too many little boys have been told they're sissies when they needed to be able to just be held and cry.
Yeah.
And sometimes what can be braver than just putting down all your barriers and letting God hold you and letting it out. I mean, what can be braver than that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's too many masculinity is attacked too much on both sides. Like they're trying to feminize men, but they're also not letting men be soft enough in situations.
Yeah.
You have to know how to do both and balance it out.
Yeah. No, it was interesting. I actually was talking about this with your daughter today.
Oh.
She wanted to go back to the house because she didn't like the clothes that she brought. And so I was driving her back, and a song came on, and it was a kind of like a sad song. And I was telling her about it, and I was like, oh yeah, like I really like this song even though it's sad. And she's like, oh, I like sad things sometimes too. And she's like, sometimes I can look at my dog and just start crying. And I go, Kaya, don't ever let anyone tell you that tears are not strength though.
Yeah, for real.
Like, it's interesting to me that the peak of every single emotion, it's expressed in tears.
Yeah.
You're so happy, you cry.
Yeah.
You're so scared, you cry. You're so fearful, you cry. You're so frustrated, you cry.
There's power in tears.
There's power in tears.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, your uncle is a crier. Like, I will cry. Daniel looks at me wrong, I cry. It's something that I've learned to be like really okay with.
Yeah.
Because it's my heart, and it's how I see beauty in it. I see the power behind the tears.
Yeah.
You express like there was one moment with Tim Ross. I was in his living room. No, we were at his kitchen, and I was going through a really hard season because I had let shame wire my mouth shut and like keep me silent in my season. And a buddy of ours had just gone through a rehab season, and he just got out. And so like he came and met us, and he was sharing his story, and I just had tears streaming down my face. Because the whole time the Lord was beckoning me, say something. And I had the enemy in my head saying, don't you dare make this about you. Don't take away his win to talk about your loss. And Tim caught on to that and allowed me to have the space to open my mouth and share what I was going through. And he came around and gave me like the biggest hug, and I just broke. But he told me afterwards, he said, there are tears. It is scientifically proven that there are tears that roll slower. And it's the tears of the hurting that roll slower down their cheek. Angry tears roll extremely fast. But if you are hurting, they roll slower down, and they carry, I think it's different hormones. And when people see those, they are inclined to move closer to that person because of it.
Wow.
And he said, those are the tears that heal.
Wow.
Oh man, that's powerful.
Because they invite in community. They invite in people to put their arms around you.
That's good.
Man, that's so good.
And there's healing in those tears.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of people who have denied their own healing in seasons because they have shut off their emotions. They have shut off their tear ducts. And they have not allowed themselves to cry.
And some as kids were taught that you're not allowed to cry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a household that literally shuts it down.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Whew. This is what I love about this show. We can laugh, and we can have some silly moments, and we can just turn a corner, and God's right
Go
there.
super deep.
And go super deep.
The deep end.
The deep end.
Hi, welcome back to the deep end.
That's the Craze Show. We can't steal that.
Oh, I should have said that. We can bleep that out.
Now we have to pay copyright to him.
What did I do?
Oh man.
No, but it's always fascinating to me to see where the Lord wants to take the conversations, And that's why I love the format that we have it's open. It's open conversations. We can literally, I love the verbiage that we've found of putting a magnifying glass on something.
Yeah.
And that magnifying glass can be moved.
Yeah.
And we look at this piece for a little bit and we talk about this. And I feel like that's what we've really done this episode is we've talked about a lot of different things. But every single one, it's like the Lord has kind of led it to it and said like, okay, let's hit this real fast because there's some people out there that are listening that need this.
Yeah.
And now they need to hear about this.
Yeah.
And so, Daniel, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No, this is really good. I just want to see if there is any, like for all our listeners out there, like, is there any encouraging word that if they're going through a tough season or I feel like you're on the other side of that season, you're in a season of just tremendous blessing, breakthrough, and
and growth,
a lot of growth. So what would you say, Matt, to those people that are like, at this moment, they're hurting and they're in that dark place? If you could say anything to them, what would it be?
Oh, man.
Not to put you on the spot.
And we could take our time with this. Don't feel like you have to answer
I don't want to rush through it.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
There is great gain in the perseverance of making it through something like that. So obviously you're in a rough season, you want out of it.
Yeah.
But sometimes those rough seasons, God has us in what we'd call a desert season. Sometimes those are the dark seasons.
Yeah.
And had my desert season not been so long, I mean, it felt like a long time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It felt like a long time. And it was a long time from the time I was 15 till I was 26 before I was really set free and felt like I was out of that season of my life. But that was, obviously going through it, it was the worst time ever and I hated it. But if I look back on it now, I'm so thankful for the time God spent molding me and giving me things that I can now minister to people through that I've experienced. I'm not just saying, hey, I feel like you should do this. I'm saying, hey, I walked through this.
Yeah.
This is how you should handle this. This is what God wants to show you, and you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like God, no matter what, going back to Sam's favorite picture, no matter what, it's not your footprints, it's God's, and He has you.
Yeah.
Like just know that through the dark season, He's not going to let you go.
That's so good.
And there's so much blessing on the other end.
Yeah.
If you make it. If you make it through, there's so much blessing.
Yeah. I think that's amazing.
I love that. I do want to, before we close out this episode, I want to give you any space. If there's anything that you are like needing encouragement in or wanting hope in or like a hardship that you're going through, if you want to take this time and share it, and if not,
I will say here lately, speaking of blessings, we had a ton of blessings when we were moving and all that. But here lately, we've felt very attacked. We've had, I know this is going to sound stupid to people, but we had a thing with our van, an accident with our van that cost a bunch of money. We had taxes go up, which cost us a bunch of money. What else? We had like my tractor broke all within like a 2-3 week span.
Wow.
And, man, I just told Daniel the other day, I was like, dude, I'm struggling. Like, I feel like every time we turn around, we're being attacked.
Yeah.
But already, it's crazy. Already in the last like 2 days, God has like been showing me like how He already handled it. He was like, I knew this was coming. That's why you have this insurance. That's going to cover you here, and it's not going to cost you as much. I gave you a raise last year for this amount. It's going to cover your finances that you lost for fixing this, and this. Like He already knew that was coming. And He took care of us. So I can't say that there's anything right now that I need like prayer for, I guess, actually my business to take off a little more here. It's been slow going and I just want to see that pick up. So
literally while you were just talking,
come on.
It's like, it goes right back to what I said about the beginning of your story. The enemy is attacking your finances. And that's because there's an abundance and a blessing that's coming.
Come on.
And he's making you feel weak so that you give up before it gets there.
No.
But I strongly felt that whenever you were talking. And I noticed like that you were saying things that all it had money in it.
Yeah, all of it was like,
Yeah.
I was worried about money
Yeah.
the whole time.
Yeah.
I was like, Lord, how are we going to afford all this? Everything broke at one time.
Yeah. And I feel like the Lord, or that the enemy is throwing punches where the Lord's throwing blessing.
Well,
And so that's my encouragement to you right now for that.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt, but after we did our podcast from last time, some incredible testimony has happened in our lives. I just want to be able to share. I talked last time about having a bunch of things kind of going wrong with our van and some other stuff breaking down and having a bunch of extra expenses. And God covered all that within the next week or so after that. But we had a huge one happen about 2 weeks after that where our septic was struck by lightning. And it was at the smaller house. My in-laws live in a smaller house on our property. And then we have the bigger house that me and my family live in. And so their smaller house septic was struck by lightning and it completely destroyed the pump. And then we come to find out that the septic's not even viable. It can't be used. The way it pumps and everything is illegal and against the EPA and everything. So while they were out pumping that one out so that the plumber could come in and fix the pump, I was like, well, we're going to go ahead and have them pump it anyways. I might as well spend the extra cash and just have them pump out the one at our house. So you don't have to worry about it. They pumped that one out and come to find out that that system is failing and it was almost backed up into the house, and which was really bad. But so I talked to the plumber when he showed up and asked him what he thought it would be. And he said probably between 10 and 16,000 to do a system for both houses. And so we get a call about a week later from them coming out and looking and measuring everything and seeing what we needed. It was going to be like $23,000 to cover all of it. And I started stressing really bad, knew we couldn't cover it, didn't have the money. And so me and my wife were talking and she was like, babe, don't worry about it. Don't stress about it. Like, God's got it covered. We just need to pray on it and trust. And we've been going through this encountering or experiencing God booklet. And it's talking literally about all of these things about trusting God through these kind of situations and just ask him to speak to you and show you what he needs to through the situation and to just trust that he's going to provide for you. And so we just started praying and committing to prayer that, God was going to handle it and take care of it. And about a week and a half or so later, 2 weeks later, I get a text finding out that I'm going to get a check for $20,000 to cover the entire cost of it, or most of the cost of it. So then I called back the plumber and talked to them, and they were able to actually split the systems up and give us two totally separate systems and cut the cost a little bit and get it around the $20,000, which is what we got to cover everything. And then above and beyond that, God blessed us with even more money coming in extra that we didn't expect. And so my message is just trust God. He knows what you need, and he knows what's happened way before you can possibly imagine. I mean, he's known it since the beginning of time that this was going to happen to us, and he already had it covered. And what was really cool that he showed me was I was praying about it, and I was like, God, what can you show me in this? And he was like, I covered it, but I also knew it was coming. And the lightning strike was used to show you that your system was backing up and that it was about to back up into the house. Had this other system not been struck by lightning, it would have backed up into our house and it would have been too late. We wouldn't have known it. And it would have ruined a bunch of the stuff in the house and gotten all over our floors and everything. And so he was so good to let the other one be struck by lightning. So it saved us from having to deal with the overflow in this one. And so actually the lightning strike was a blessing in the end. So it was really cool. I just wanted to share that, and you guys just be blessed. Thank you.
If you feel anything, Daniel, you can jump in on it.
No.
Okay.
I mean, that sounded heartless. No, I'm just like, I'm sitting here and I'm just gleaning wisdom from y'all. So this is really good.
I have another great thing that I want to go back to, if that's all right.
Yes, please.
So when you were talking about the Lord or the enemy attacking my vision, so I got to tell this. I told you this story when we were in the truck together, and I want to go through it because it's such a powerful moment for me. And we just had something amazing come out of it here recently. I got to tell. So I was like probably early 20s, 21, 22-ish. And I was working with my business partner at Overhead Door. And we were at a job, and there was this construction company there building the building, and we were putting the doors in. And it was just me and Kevin that day. And usually on those big jobs, there was like 5 or 6 of us guys, but it was just me and Kevin there that day. Everybody else was busy. And this guy on the construction crew had a broken arm broken arm or leg. I can't remember now even. He had something was broken on his body.
Yeah.
And we were going through this time in church where we're like, they were really encouraging us to step out and like go pray for people that have injuries and things. And we just had a Bethel team come and like they were encouraging us, go out and step out in faith and pray for people. And so I was like, Kevin, I feel like I'm supposed to go over and pray for that guy's like broken arm. And Kevin was like, cool. And I was like, you coming over there? And he goes, no. He was like, God told you to go pray for him. I was like, oh crap. so I go over and I'm praying for him. And once I get there and I'm praying for him, I'm praying for him arm to heal or whatever. And I'm telling him this, and the Lord, I've never heard a word so clearly in my life. The Lord says, you're not over here to pray for his broken leg. That's not what's being healed. He goes, his wife's about to give birth to his first son, and he's going to go to lunch and leave his phone, and he's going to miss it. Tell him to take his phone so he doesn't miss his phone call. And I chickened out. I didn't do it. And it was the clearest word I've ever heard from the Lord. Like, it wasn't one of those inklings or feelings. I heard the Lord speak to me, and I didn't do it, and I was disobedient. And I was like, I don't have the faith to say that. And so I didn't say it. And for years, I didn't have another prophetic word for anybody. And I thought it was the Lord punishing me. And it was, probably, I don't even know how many years later. It was probably 7 years after that. I didn't have a word for that long, not a single prophetic word for anybody that I can clearly remember.
Wow.
And I finally had a word for somebody, and it was simple. God gave me a little one, and it wasn't something I was afraid to speak. It was very generic. So I went over and gave the person the word, and it was like that freed me a little bit, but it wasn't the end. Like, I still had to walk down this road of learning to trust that I was hearing the right thing.
Wow.
And one day the Lord showed me, he was like, I didn't shut you down. I wasn't punishing you. He was like, you were stepping in front of you. You were the only one in the way. He was like, you were ashamed that you let me down. Because what happened was that guy came back from lunch that day because I didn't tell him that word. He came back from lunch that day and had a missed call on his phone. And it was his wife had left a message, and he was really upset, and he was cussing and yelling. And the guys were like, what's wrong? And he was like, I missed my son being born because I forgot my phone. And I took all that guilt on. I took all that on me. And I took not getting a word as God punishing me, but it was me shutting my own ears off to what God was saying. So I just want to say to people, if you're too afraid to step out and say the word, don't, if you feel like you messed up or whatever, step out of that, shake it off, and keep listening to God, because he wants to give you more. I took years off of words I was supposed to give people and blessings I was supposed to give people. I robbed people of blessings out of my own guilt.
Wow.
And I just want to say to people, it's you stepping in the way. It's not God giving up on you. God never gives up, and he never stops speaking.
Yeah.
It's us getting in our own way and shutting it down and saying, no, I'm not good enough. I messed up.
Wow.
Well,
That's really good.
That was this. That's another one of those like pivotal times in my life that was like God showing me it was all me. Like that he was always there. He was always loving me. It was I shut it down, not him. He never gives up on us.
No, he doesn't.
No, I think that's extremely encouraging for our listeners, because they could have that perspective of God has shut down or has turned himself off from me. And that's not the case. Like you said, like he never stops speaking. He is always speaking. He's always wanting to tell his children that he loves them.
Yeah.
He's always wanting to tell them that he's proud of them. And you have to just find the empathy and the forgiveness for yourself.
Yeah.
In the hard season that you went through. Because more times than not, it's the shame that's shutting us off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And shame has a way of wiring your mouth shut. But again, if you can find a common thread in this episode, please take this perspective that the enemy attacks where the Lord's wanting to bless.
Come on.
And wherever you feel like the enemy has been hitting you and hitting you and hitting you in that specific area, shift that piece of glass a little bit and see that the Lord's wanting to bring strength there.
Yeah.
And that the reason it hasn't taken you out is because there's a muscle that is enduring and building under every blow. The enemy's actually making you stronger.
Come on, that's good.
In this. And he doesn't even know that. Like, he's building that muscle that's going to take him out.
Wow.
Come on. That's so good.
So just shift that perspective a little bit to find the hope. If you can't find the hope, just search a little bit longer, stare a little bit harder, because it's there.
Come on.
You want to close this out, Danny? I keep throwing things on you, I know.
No, this is good. I literally am just sitting here listening to y'all. I just realize how blessed I am to have friends in my life like y'all. I mean, just from...
We love you.
Oh, gosh. The emotions. No. Just serious side. It's just like listening to your testimony. I feel so encouraged. And then by everybody listening on here and just us two, like, I am so glad that God's doing the work inside of you. Every single thing that you're bringing out, every single thing that you're saying, it's like so rich is the only word I have. It's like, it's almost like it's wet, like tangible oil on it. So thank you so much for being vulnerable, number one. But number two, thank you for moving to Texas and
welcome.
Blessing us. So
I'm telling you, God has blessed it. And he's opened a new door. And before we finish, that was the cool thing that came out of that. So I told that story, the testimony thing about like me not giving that guy the word. I had told that story, and my wife, I was telling that at our Bible study the other night, and my wife was like, in the van today on the way here, she was like, babe, I just got to tell you, she was like, I've been like fighting the Lord giving me words and like afraid to speak. And she's like, ever since you told that story at Bible study, God's been like speaking to me. And she goes, at church today, he gave me like 3 words for different people, and I wasn't afraid to speak them because of what the story you told.
That's good.
And like she was crying in the car on the way here. I started crying. It was so good.
That's awesome.
You mean that like a season in which you thought you failed could bring encouragement to other people?
What?
Come on, baby.
What?
You mean a place where you felt shattered actually was a beautiful masterpiece? Mosaic. That was perfect.
That's how we're going to end the episode.
It's like subliminal messages.
Mosaic Live.
Oh, man. So good.
Oh, well, guys, thank you for choosing to spend a little bit of your life and a little bit of your time with us and just dare to look at things a little bit differently. I've been severely blessed through this episode, and we hope that you guys were as well.
Yeah.
And so until next time.